Hello and welcome to another edition of It's Your City. I'm Bob Crowell and I have the honor and privilege of being mayor of the greatest city in Nevada, our very own capital, Carson City. As you know, and I say every 2 weeks, I give a little rundown of what happened at the last board meeting and some other things going on around the community. And so let me start by talking about the board meeting that was held on March 21st to talk a little bit about what happened there. Probably one of the bigger issues that we talked about was in the afternoon that dealt with the priority of construction projects, general fund construction projects, not your water and sewer and the larger ones, which we'll talk about here in a minute. But this was the general fund construction projects for the sheriff, the fire department, the city, and the city buildings, including Parks and Rec, and all the things that come under the general fund. As you may or may not know, there's in Carson City there's a 5 cents per hundred tax on real property that goes to funding construction infrastructure projects. That 5 cents per hundred generates currently, with the property tax values we have, about $600,000. Out of the $600,000, roughly almost a half, a little less than half, is set aside for interest costs on prior construction projects that have been undertaken, leaving just north of $300,000, $325,000 or thereabouts for new construction projects or improvement projects. And we had a long list of projects that the city department heads and managers thought were important to put on the drawing board to see if any of them could be funded, if there was any money for them. And they had their own priority of what they thought the priority should be. The afternoon was taken by the board to, one, look at those priorities, and two, kind of get an idea of where the board wanted to go if there was any infrastructure improvement money. At the end of that, there were obviously far more rehabilitation and upgrade needs for our city property than we have money, particularly if you look at the $300,000 some odd dollars that's available for upgrades and repairs. So at the end of that day, at the end of the discussion, it was determined that because we had been using our ambulance services had been taxed to the point of use that we were having to borrow ambulances sometimes from our neighbors in order to meet the ambulance needs in our own community. We have 6 ambulances and we run 3 and keep 3 for backup. Even with the 3 in backup, we were frequently required to borrow another ambulance. And the board felt that that was a critical infrastructure need for our community. Unfortunately, an ambulance costs about $200,000, maybe $300,000, and it also costs to run it, personnel costs. And so if you did buy a new ambulance, you'd not only have to, one, incur the cost of a new ambulance, but also make adjustments on the operating side of the ledger for staffing issues for that ambulance. Given that, the board thought that the best thing to do would be, one, to try and set aside at least $100,000 for the acquisition of a new ambulance. That wouldn't pay for all of it, but we would at least start saving money for an ambulance. That would mean we wouldn't have to deal with the staffing issues at this time either, but we would try and sock away $100,000 towards the purchase of an ambulance, and hopefully if the economy keeps going in the right direction, we will have some additional funds to help defray not only the cost of the ambulance, but the cost of staffing, the operational cost of that ambulance. At the same time, the board determined to fund the necessary roof repairs for the Carson City Library, which are estimated around $115,000 as a priority for our community. So that would take another $115,000 from what's left in the construction in the repair and replacement fund that is funded by the 5 cents. And then we would leave the remaining amount for what they call break and fix it funds, for funds that are available for use during the upcoming year in the event that there's an unexpected break or need to repair equipment of city property. So that was the end of the priority list. That kind of solved all the issues in one fell swoop. I want to thank Supervisor Abowd for bringing that particular solution to bear, because it solved a lot of issues, and we can always take a look at the priority of the other projects as we go forward during the budget year and see how the economy is doing. The next thing we talked about, well, let me just say that before I move on, the bigger issues on infrastructure costs are clearly the water, the wastewater treatment plant, which needs to be upgraded, and which I've talked about earlier on this program, as well as the stormwater system, which includes not just the stormwater but other storm water reservoir basins and sediment retention areas. We need to look at that, and then we need to do something about our streets to see, because we're close to crossing the line on when it's going to cost us more to repair the streets than we would otherwise have to incur. Those are some big expenses that we have to find a way to fund in order to keep our infrastructure, particularly those that are critical to our public safety, like flood issues, storm issues, our streets, and our wastewater and water delivery systems. So we'll be talking about how to fund those as the budget process goes forward in the next 30 days here or so. And I encourage you to kind of, if there's any way that you know of doing things other than trying to maybe tinker with the sewer rates or the what other rates, please give us a call. Also, on yesterday's meeting, the board, on a split vote, determined to allow the creation of a deputy manager position in City Hall. Right now, Carson City is run by a city manager who reports to the Board of Supervisors, and the city manager then has what's called direct reports. That's Public Works and Parks and Rec and other direct report entities that report directly to the city manager. There are other, the board felt, at least a majority of the board felt that it's pretty slim in the city manager's office, particularly given the uptick in activity. One activity which is pretty critical in terms of its getting accomplished, and that is the final phase of the implementation of the performance measurement process, whereby the city has, one, created goals that it would like to see for its community, and it also created steps to reach those goals. The performance measurement process would measure how each department and each function in our community was doing in terms of reaching those goals. And the idea is to tie those efforts to the budget, so that at a glance you can see, one, what the city goals are, what the steps are, and how we're doing towards reaching those goals and meeting those measuring steps, and what they actually cost, so that at the end of the day we will have a complete picture of exactly what each program or project costs in terms of just in overall terms, and whether it's doing what it's intended to do. That's called a performance management system. It's being tried, I think, at the state level in certain areas. It is what some people have said is on the cutting edge of performance-based budgeting, and in my view, it's the future of performance-based budgeting, and for this century, or for at least the near future here. And so, but that takes someone who has either manager or deputy manager status in order to make sure that those performance measures are actually being carried out and that we complete the project. The other thing that a deputy city manager would do would be to do grant oversight, which we lost that. The person who was doing grant oversight left our community, and so we've been unable to fill that, but we have not filled that position. So some of the funds that were used, at least in the upcoming year, some of the funds that were allocated to the grant oversight position or the grants administrator position could be used for the deputy manager, at least in the first year. The other thing that the manager could do, among some other things, but the other major issue would be to do special projects such as town halls and other community outreach issues that, at least in my view, are lacking in terms of participation by our city and in our community. So it was a split vote, but we'll see where that goes. And what I want to assure you, and it was pretty clear from the vote and from the discussion, that the hiring of a deputy manager is not a stepping stone to a manager position, because if we do have to replace a manager, it's my position, and I believe it's the position of the entire board, that we do a national search for the replacement if we ever have to reach that juncture for the current city manager. We do a national search. That's about it. There were some other things on the board that we talked about relating to the budget, but those are the big issues that we just that we addressed at the last meeting. Let me close by saying that I'm proud to announce that the Always Lost, a Meditation on War exhibit created by the Writing and Sociology class at Western Nevada College has been asked and allowed to present an exhibit or to promote the exhibit at the Nevada State Legislature. The Always Lost, a Meditation on War, is, if you haven't seen it, it's on national tour right now, but it is really rather an amazing and thoughtful and thought-provoking exhibit, as it shows on its Wall of the Dead some 6,500 plus servicemen and women who have lost their lives since September 11th, 2001, fighting in Iraq and Afghanistan. I would encourage you, I think it's going to be up in the legislature, or at least a portion of it, and a video will be there as well about the exhibit. Will be up towards the middle part of April. If you can, I encourage you to go down and take a look at that. That's about it for this version of It's Your City. Again, I'd like to take the opportunity to thank each and every one of you for what each of you do to make our city a better place to live, work, and play.